Welcome to the caster desk here in beautiful Berlin, Germany, as we get ready for our first best of 3 in the group stage. Vitality versus Heretics. Dagda, this is going to be a banger. I'm Drakos, that's Dagda, in case you missed that. But this one's exciting. This one's thrilling because, again, I know I got in trouble for narrative before, I swear. There's a start the game button, but it's not plugged into anything. I promise I'm not holding off on pushing.
I can see it's plugged right into that.
Just to be clear, this is a meme and I don't have the power to start the game at will. Players are getting ready now, but this is, of course, as far as heavy-hitting narratives, Jankos versus Perkz. And that's a banger, don't get me wrong, and we'll get to talk about it over the course of the best of 3, but I'm also just excited to see kind of the teams as a whole and what they're going to bring to best of 3s. Now, we didn't talk about the patch and ready check because nothing has changed in pro play. There's pages upon pages of patch notes and nothing has changed except Yuumi is dead. Woo! So let's see what else teams can bring to the table, and if EU can maybe shake up the meta here on 13.1b.
Yeah, I'm kind of excited to see how both these teams are going to, what they're going to bring to the table, because you're still seeing a hell of a lot of Ashe in the bot lane trying to like go for these all-out pushing lanes, and I think a huge amount of this is going to rely on not only in that bot side trying to get control, but also just the mid-jungle. I mean, especially when you look at Vitality, that has kind of been the big talking point of the squad, and can they get control there?
Something that is certainly good to track as we now head into picks and bans. Maokai for now, Ashe banned away. Ashe we talked about before the cast, Dagda, kind of one of the premier champions in the meta right now. The poke, the pressure, the vision that she can provide for you just overall outside of some of these picks like Caitlyn that have maybe risen in priority. Feels like one of the strongest champions you can pick in a vacuum, but has hit the bench alongside Jax and Draven. Sejuani now following as well.
Yeah, I'm curious to see if the Caitlyn does actually make it through here. Heretics have traditionally always banned this when they're, or one of the highest bans when they're on the right side, but we've only seen Vitality pick it up once for Neon, and I wouldn't be surprised to see that taken away here, or maybe they just want to go for that Sejuani for both.
Sejuani off the table. Okay. So both of the premier jungle options kind of gone alongside the Maokai, which while it was nerfed, as well as Demonic Embrace being nerfed, is still seeing play internationally. Karma going to be the immediate lock in here. Now, generally, I'm assuming that this is not a flex. Of course, G2 did show that it can be flex, but more likely than not going to the hands of Kaiser and just looking to secure lane priority in the bottom side. Big call out here, though. Caitlyn up and available. Incredibly powerful with the changes to Infinity Edge, and it is going to get locked in. This is a huge mantle for Jackspektra to put on its own shoulders.
And it does feel like this is basically Vitality testing the waters by leaving this open. One of the big things we've seen is that Heretics just don't want to take the Caitlyn. They'll ban on the red side, but they won't actually take it when it's open on blue. So I think this is kind of Vitality going, okay, we're learning as this best of 3 goes on. Heretics are willing to pick this up. We just have to see if Jackspektra and Mersa can pop off on this pick now on the bottom side.
Yeah, and I think it is the luxury of best of 3s as opposed to best of 1, something that players and fans have talked about for a long time. You do have more time, more luxury to experiment in drafts. You can give away the Caitlyn one game just to see, just to call out and say, hey, can you really play this? Can you make it work? Now, Caitlyn is here, very terrifying threats in terms of carry potential in these games, early pressure from Caitlyn, but the response already coming in for Vitality, packing 2 carries of their own. You've got the Kindred as well as the Ezreal now alongside a Karma, pretty strong bottom lane.
Yeah, I'm kind of surprised though, because look, we know Bo isn't very good on carries, but I think you're kind of looking going, okay, well, I mean, Photon didn't look great in the Ornn. You don't really want to put Perkz onto a tank, but this is something that needs a very tanky front line. So unless that Karma is going to be flexed towards like Perkz in the mid lane or something funky, it just feels strange to me that this wouldn't be the typical Vitality draft that I would think of them for. It still wants something that's going to offer engage. It's just Photon and Perkz haven't played that role yet.
Yeah, I think for me, I look at, Team Heretics, I see what they're putting together. They ordered pizza. We know it's going to be good. They've got a Caitlyn and Azir and K'Sante. Those are 3 champions who are pretty close to best in position. On the opposite side, Vitality are cooking. Are they chefs? It remains to be seen, because while this draft can be strong, giving up those 3 champions, especially against Heretics, where Ruby we know is a big Azir player, where Evie is basically only playing K'Sante, feels like a pretty big flip in your first game.
I mean, look, it's the weekend. You go back to your normal takeaway, right? You're going to go for your Azir for Ruby, most played champion of all time. You're going to go for your K'Sante for Evie. I mean, it works, right? And I think the big thing is you got pushing mid, pushing bot. K'Sante very good at controlling the wave up the top side. So now you're kind of hitting all you like on Heretics. They like going for these late game team fights. You've got these late game carries. They can play through strong lanes. It's kind of up to now Vitality to take what has been a bit of a weird draft and see exactly what way they want to try and take it.
Yeah, and I think that the interesting thing here is you see Heretics already banning away some of the conventional picks into the into the K'Sante. Gwen, one of the options, just because it forces K'Sante away from Iceborne, which is his strongest early game item. Zilean now also going to hit the bench here. So clearly there's more than meets the eye in this draft overall. Could be a Zillion mid, a little Bjork shout out here, and find out what the next ban is going to be. Expected to be a jungler, but instead the Lux just taking away the premier pairing alongside the Caitlyn.
And I'm curious if we're kind of going to go with G2 angle. We saw them with the Swain Karma trying to go for the double radiant compositions that have been starting to eke in and see if you want to experiment with them, but I'm not the biggest fan of them. I think they have a place, but especially now that we're on to 13.1b and Grievous Wounds are kind of back to actually being somewhat impactful, I don't think going for double radiant virtue really works. So I'm curious exactly what the game plan is here for Vitality, because it feels like they're going completely center field here.
Yeah. Of course, questions for Heretics is just to find that support pairing. This is a Sion, and it, I think, is probably a Sion top, but Perkz was playing Sion mid in Champs Queue. Now, I might feel like a buffoon for saying that, as he is locking in Syndra. Never mind, it's not Champs. I was getting, I was hyped. I was like, that's something I haven't seen before, Dagda. I was ready to push the button. Meta alarm. No, it's going to be Sion on the top side, so just looking for that more traditional front-to-back option with double carries and just having the Syndra as a strong blind pick, or not blind pick, rather pick into the Azir. As final debates here coming in from Mersa in terms of what he wants to select.
Yeah, I mean, it has been the double AD carry. I was about to say that we see a lot, and actually going to be the Caitlyn going to the support role. So this is something we've been seeing a lot in other regions, finally coming to the table. Huge amount of push, works incredibly well. You go for an Umbo Grave into lethality, you got a ton of damage as well for that lane phase, and it makes it so incredibly difficult for the Karma and the Ezreal to try and keep this pushing wave off the tower.
Dagda?
Yeah.
I'm with you on paper. The problem is with a lane like this, if your name is not Carrier, my response to you locking it in is prove it. And it would be sick if Heretics are able to show up on the stage today and prove it. Maybe it's a Varus support. We'll wait. Of course, they have 20 seconds, so they have to make their final role swap come through. But again, this is a tall task, and it feels like the pressure of execution is just riding more and more onto Heretics. And it looks like it is going to be a Varus support. We are deep into the tank on both sides, thinking of some special sauce here.
Now, I'm curious if it is actually going to be the Varus support or whether it's just Mersa piloting it in the AD carry role, because maybe you got the Caitlyn that feels a little bit more suitable, but I'm waiting to see, all right? But honestly, like, where I've seen this most times is actually going for the Caitlyn in the support role, because she can go for the Umbra Glaive, you can go for that kind of style where you're just going to keep looking for headshot damage and being able to set up with the traps a little bit more. But I'm curious because, I mean, obviously lethality Varus has been a thing. It just feels like from the support role, you're not getting as much damage as you need to be relevant with that point.
Certainly. And draft curveballs aside, Dagda, I know these are two relatively new compositions in terms of what we're seeing from both sides, but what are expectations when we talk about the early game? Is there a lane that you want to focus? Is this going to be a quieter early game? What do you expect? Well, we'll find out what your answer is in a moment as we get ready for our first game of Team Vitality versus Heretics.
So to me, this game feels like a hell of a lot is on Vitality in these early stages, especially when you look towards the mid game. 2-item spikes, incredibly good for Vitality. But the biggest problem when I look at them across the board is you're not exactly the biggest playmakers. You've got good, strong mid jungle that you can try and play through. But if Heretics are just able to continue pushing through their lanes with Ruby having push, the bot lane having push, it should be very difficult for Vitality to actually find these opportunities. And I think we're going to have to look at Bo to see how creative can he be to find those moments for Vitality where they can get these leads.
And Bo is a guy that we've been looking at now. Everyone was excited. Hold that thought. Level 1. We'll put that graphic up in a second. Already trading blow for blow here. Barrier going down in exchange for both summoner spells on the side of Kaiser. So overall, positive early trade right now in the Team Heretics bot lane. Comet is well coming in for Mersa, not opting for Halo Blades. It seems like he doesn't expect to be in range a whole lot here in lane.
Yeah, so very different from what I've kind of expected from the bot lane so far, right? Because as I was talking about Caitlyn, usually getting into that AD carry role, especially the support role instead, you generally take the double Halo Blades. Oftentimes you do get the barrier, which Mersa's gone for, and you just hard trade level 1. So one, kind of seeing a little bit of a different spec here from Heretics with who's piloting what, but also just Vitality wanting to take that face check early. I mean, it's kind of given a good bit of control here to Heretics to start off that push.
And a lot of the things that make Caitlyn a quote-unquote good support are very similar for Varus. Can build lethality, scales decently well with it, we all know, poke Varus. And additionally as well, has a bit of utility, in this case the ultimate, non-committal, hard CC to kick fights off or to look to disengage. But right now, level 2, Bo already moving down to the bottom side of the map. Jackspektra and Mersa have to be careful here. Bo with red buff, ready to step forward, full committing now. Double flash instantaneously on the bottom side, and that is massive for a lane like this.
Yeah, especially if they'd managed to get either the slow from Bo or Kaiser, that could have been terrible. But now it gives an opportunity for a little bit more pressure on that bot side, and Neon feeling that immediately.
And this is one of the things that we were worried about with this lane, and part of the reason why we were skeptical when it did get locked in, where they had not selected the Caitlyn before, is that if you are winning with the Caitlyn lane, you have to keep winning, because once it starts to fall apart a little bit, it falls apart so incredibly quickly. Essentially just a glass cannon of a character as Perkz getting some aggressive trades in mid.
It's also because Jackspektra and Mersa haven't traditionally been the we're going to take over lane, bot lane, right? They've actually struggled quite a bit in the bot side when they want to try and get these big leads. Like, some of those stats have looked absolutely fantastic, where you can see on the Draven, it's looked absolutely great, but every time we see him on something else, he's falling behind in that CSD and gold.
Yep. Gromp there, taken away by Bo, but those stats tell the story of Jackspektra. Sadly, hasn't been able to show up on stage outside of that Draven game in a big way. And maybe this Caitlyn game can be different, but right now, being in this kind of deficit, 8 CS, 9 CS now to 24. He will get a few more as he catches the wave here, but when you're under your tower against an Ezreal Karma lane, it's been this way since this duo was invented, you pretty much stay under your tower.
And it's also nuts to see the way that Vitality set this up, right? Like, look at where Bo is. His entire top side camps are up, and he's just been sitting in his bot side river to make sure that Kaiser and Neon can continue to have this push, so we can make sure that Jankos can try and correct the mistakes that Jackspektra and Mersa have made so far. So right now, Bo doing reasonably well, but now starting to feel that presence of Ruby as well, as they might try and invade onto this top side.
For now, it could just be the Scuttle Crab. Bo gonna grab what he can. Looks like contesting the jungle for now as Jankos moving to top. He's gonna wander in, knowing that Perkz is already under his tower, not really in any room to do anything to respond back. But on the bottom side of the map, Mersa now been locked up. Neon now stepping forward. Big damage coming in onto Mersa. Lands the Mystic shots, lands the auto. There's nothing left of Neon. He's not done. He's stepping forward, continuing to trade autos. Jackspektra getting a little thirsty here. 1 or 2 more autos, that's all it's going to take. No flash available. The Q through the flash out to safety from Neon. Does take it away in the end. 1 killed in favor of Vitality.
I mean, the fact you have a 500 gold lead now for Neon on this bot side is going to be absolutely fantastic. And you can kind of see the extra damage this press the attack build goes. This is going to help you so much in a lane where you want to try and go for the all-in.
Big stun, scatter the weak. Bo now stepping in. Don't know if he wants to commit for this one. He's going to try to. Mersa in the area. Damage is okay, but sadly not enough items under his belt or levels to finish that one off.
I mean, at least it's a nice job to try and keep pressure away from this mid lane, but at the moment, this is kind of what we're talking about with Vitality, right? Being able to find this early pressure through their jungle, getting the bot side ahead, and now Bo wants to transition that pressure towards the mid lane as well. Make sure that both of these pushing lanes for Heretics are struggling.
Jankos looking for a counter punch on the top side. Ghost coming out for Evie, looking to lock down Photon. Flash comes out. Trying to create some distance here as he goes back under tower. Do they have enough damage to finish the job? Not quite. Roar the Slayer, just a bit of extra poke coming out from Photon in the end, and he manages to live through it. Will cost him his TP and his flash in the end, but he gets away.
We're gonna have a look at this play on the bot side, and Kaiser doing just a great job of hiding in the bush, getting the chains down, and because the double flash was burnt earlier on, Kaiser just about able to eke away, and nobody in Heretics can follow up.
I mean, big first blood. So massive for Neon, especially on an Ezreal. That's essentially a free tier when you back grabs a Sheen as well. Bo now on the bottom side, again, keeping so much pressure down. And when we talked about this matchup, yeah, there's history between Perkz and Jankos, but really it was Bo versus Jankos that we wanted to talk about, because when one of these junglers gets ahead, they can take over a game. Now, these guys, 0-0-0 in kill participation, but you've seen Bo already gets 2 flashes on the bottom side of the map. Jankos got 1. Bo's been mid lane. He's gotten another flash. He's gotten sums. He's gotten damage down. And now his bot lane, or Bo's bot lane, is so far ahead that it feels just unplayable for Heretics.
Yeah, and it feels a lot of the times like Bo is that player that wants to go out aggressive and get those early leads and make sure that he's the one that's dictating the pace of the game. But when I look at Jankos, it nearly feels like he's almost the guardian, right? He's the veteran on this roster, the guy who wants to try and make sure that all of his lanes are going to be going the way that Heretics want, because this is the team that likes to play around a lot of skirmishing, but definitely relies on guys like Ruby on Azir in these late game fights. So Jankos very typically tracking the enemy jungler, making sure that they actually can get leads, but unfortunately Vitality have found their way through that.
And again, I think it is so difficult now for the Heretics bottom lane to get themselves out of this hold. You can see Jackspektra forced out of lane. Bo is going to grab a mark on the top side of the map, but now it's just Mersa sitting there collecting farm, and the Caitlyn's only going to get further and further behind. And keep in mind, with the changes to Infinity Edge, the fact that you can get it second, Caitlyn feels really good on this patch, but at the rate we're going, it is going to take a long time to get that much money, Dagda.
And the thing is, we were talking about how strong just the 2-item spike from Vitality is, right? So if you're still only struggling to get towards that IE at that stage, Vitality you're going to pop off with Perkz as well. But once more, spot on vision. Jankos is on this top side though.
Has red buff, but no level 6 quite yet. Bo just backing the brush. Trying to create a bit of pressure once Jankos finishes his camp. Maybe he can look for an angle on the top side of the map. But again, the difficulty here is while Evi's doing fine in his individual 1v1 lane matchup, you have to put the Sion so far behind for it to mean anything. Whereas again, inversely, putting the Caitlyn Varus behind at all is devastating. It just feels like at this stage of the game, the odds a bit stacked against Heretics when they weren't able to capitalize on a good level 1.
And even when you look at just how Heretics have tended to play the game, right? Traditionally, they do mass move towards this Herald on the top side. Now, looks like Jankos, with just the push that Ruby has in mid lane, should be able to still secure this Herald, but you can definitely see that for Heretics, they're not exactly the most comfortable situation having their bot lane this far behind, but we'll have to see if Jankos can try and turn some of these advantages in the top end with Ruby and Evi having that control into something a little bit more.
Photon, really positive trades here, but Evi obviously just trying to usher the wave back under tower. Nice sidestep with the footwork there to get away from Photon. Herald is going to go down. Jankos is going to take it away. Bo contesting just a little bit. No major spells burned quite yet. Keep in mind, while we're talking, while the camera is on the top side of the map, the Ezreal and Karma continue to push in, continue to deny CS, continue to look to grab plates. Now we're fighting for jungle camps, but Perkz going to get an excellent disengage there, not fully going to commit. Jankos flashing in, wanting to finish the job. It's feeling a little bit personal, but he's already taken out the Wukong. Perkz now starting to walk away. Healing coming in. Lambs for a spike. Perkz trying to take a breather. Flash back in from Bo. Bo trying to make it look clean. Mersa manages to grab one. Ruby surely just next on the list. Oh, Bo, no. He's gearing up. You give him one, you give him two. He's looking for three. That's going to do it in the end. The double kill for Bo. Meanwhile, top lane, 1v1 back and forth. Evi going all out. Photon going away. Not interested in that one, and a massive win in the exchange for Vitality.
And the thing was on that bottom side of the map as well, Jackspektra nearly went down. He had to burn his flash, had to burn his heal, and that's giving Vitality's bot lane more time under this tower. Heretics tried to take the fight with a man advantage, and they still lose it.
And you gotta respect the potential for damage the Syndra can throw down. The fact that Bo, we are 9 minutes into the game, and he is at 4 marks. That's 75 extra range. It's going to be so much harder for the K'Sante, for the Wukong, for anybody to do something to this Kindred at the rate that he is scaling up.
And this fight was over Bo's second stack. But the thing was, great scout of the week there. Jankos was already taken low. He didn't have a smite or anything when he was coming into this. Manages to get taken down by Bo. And it's a great Emperor's Divide by Ruby, right? But Perkz just ends up stepping into the bush. They don't get vision on him. And then Mersa just has nothing left in the tank. You're a support Varus in this situation. And, I mean, Bo just does more.
Yeah, close with the red buff, with the Comet. Very close, but at the end of the day, it's little things like that brush being there, not having that vision so they can get that last auto on Perkz to finish the job, forced to burn the flash to get close enough to do it. Makes it that much more devastating. Good news, if you're a Heretics fan, Mersa now level 6, has engage options. They have enough CC here that if Neon or Kaiser are caught slipping and a jungler is in the area, Jankos in this case, they can get taken out. But on the opposite side, it's Gale Force. It's Essence Reaver. They're getting scary fast, Dagda.
And it's funny how this is so similar to what we saw in week 1 between Vitality and Heretics, right? Where we saw these early skirmishes in the river going the way of Vitality, and that was really what sealed the deal. And again, we're seeing Heretics just losing out at these little trades that are giving so much to Vitality.
And already Perkz just throwing down so much damage here in the mid lane. Clean combos from the scout of the week, just clearing the wave. Herald now used. And the struggle here, as you've highlighted very well, is that Team Heretics are really good about securing that 8-minute Herald, but it's been hit pretty hard. You know, you look at it, yes, you still get the local gold, but when you leave to drop your 1.5 plate Herald, there's someone else on the bottom side of the map taking 2 plates in your face, and right now that is Neon's Ezreal, who is only getting further and further ahead. Taking tower shots for funsies just to poke the Caitlyn out of lane. 1,000 gold. Individually, 1,000 gold. He's a third of Vitality's overall gold lead by himself.
And I want you to think about the sentence you just said. Ezreal poking the Caitlyn out of lane. How often do we actually hear that as a conversation in this meta at the moment as well? But, I mean, at the moment, Vitality playing this absolutely spectacularly. And I think this has been one of the standout things for Vitality is, look, they're willing to give over some of these objectives like the Rift Herald when they know they can get more elsewhere on the map. And, I mean, you don't put your focus on the top side. They still win out on top side. But Vitality get the first third of the game against the Caitlyn and the Varus.
I think it's massive. And especially when you look at Vitality as a whole, I think when you looked at Neon and Kaiser and their role in this team, it was kind of to be rocks for their top side. So the fact that they were set up to take over, to find that advantage is to get that early game support from Bo with that level 2 gank that burnt both flashes that ultimately led to the bot lane dominance we're seeing now. It shows that Vitality are more than a one-note team. They don't just need to rely on top side or just bottom side. They can kind of play whatever way they need to.
I think the main factor though is, as you said, like Bo going for that early gank. And I think Bo has been really good at like playing with the expectations of the enemy team, right? Like you stick down Vision on the bot side, it's like, oh, we're definitely safe. And then he hops over Dragon Wall level 2 and ganks you bot because he knows exactly where your Vision is. And we saw a similar story here, right? You know that Bo is started bot side. He's a Kindred. There's no way he level 2 ganks, but it's how well Bo plays with those expectations in the early stages. Why I think a lot of teams do struggle to play against someone like him.
But it feels like Heretics are trying to anticipate Bo's pathing. Got a lot of members waiting in the brush there, I think expecting Bo to come over the Herald wall. Waiting with the Varus, waiting to lock him down. Still a tall task because he has a Gale Force, but surely more than enough burst to cut through. At least force the Lamb's Respite. Now Mersa backing off though, and Caitlyn taking up home in mid lane. Sadly, it's not going much better. A plate already gone. Neon is just making money. You thought he was here to play League of Legends. No, he's he's investing in his retirement. He's got a 401k. He's got a pension. He's so far ahead.
It's going pretty well for him. I mean, I want to get on the returns he is, but Evie spotting Photon on top side here. That'd be alright. I think the big one for Heretics though right now is like trying to use the fact that this is an incredibly squishy lineup, right? Like, yes, Neon has a 401k, but it's also kind of fragile, right? I think
yes, he has life insurance, but he can still die.
But if you actually get in on top of him, like Jankos trying to play for that, which is where I think we're seeing now Mersa trying to play down towards his bot side, see if they can catch out Perkz. Like, trying to find these moments where you abuse the fact that Syndra isn't great in the side lane. Bo isn't very good if you can burst him out. I think that's how Heretics can get back into this game, but they need to try and do it before Vitality look towards the third dragon for themselves. They're bringing Photon down. They have that beefy front line, and Vitality just get that opportunity to take over through the team fight.
Yeah, it's very difficult. We know Team Heretics are strong in skirmishes. They often look for those skirmishes, but it is a tall task that stands in front of them. And really, I know I've talked about Neon way too much this game, but how does he not have a shutdown? Side note, 1.8k gold. Rito, please.
Long since given up on trying to understand how bounties work.
It's the dark magic?
Yeah, I've seen the 0-7 Victor mid have a 300 gold bounty.
In case
I'm
you
not entirely
wanted
sure.
to know, there's the servers, and then there's the 3 fates. Witches standing around a pot, and they actually decide whether or not you have a shutdown.
Yeah.
So you can take it up with them if you're not certain as to why that's happening.
I have kind of minion, I don't know, whatever the rest of the spell is.
It's just, you know, the fates. They decide for you. For now, though, Bo grabbing second herald of the game. They might just use this to break open the top side of the map. The struggle here now is that for Evie, he's been doing very well in the individual 1v1. And the good news is, outside of Perkz, for the most part, he can itemize armor, but his opportunity to dominate lane is kind of fading away as Bo and Perkz just committing their resources topside. Can look to knock this one down. Don't even really need to use the Herald at this point in the game. And the map's starting to get smaller and smaller for Team Heretics. And we talked about it, Dagda. 2 items, really, where it feels like Vitality's composition can start to take over. Well, they're already taking over. So for Team Heretics, they need to find a window of opportunity before Vitality get even stronger than they already are.
I mean, the fact that all these towers are going down as well is just making it so difficult. Neon going to be able to walk away from this, but I think as you kind of highlighting, like the 2 items are great, but I mean, you're only now getting 1 item for Jackspektra. Like, this guy's only just starting to come out. Oh, wait no, okay. Sorry, we both got caught out. But yeah, I think the biggest one is just like, if you can actually get anything going for Heretics right now, it has to be through Jankos. But unfortunately, he's just being shoved in every single lane and doesn't really know where he's supposed to put his focus.
Yeah, and we wanted to talk about jungle and mid and kind of being the duos that could define this game, but in this case, the game has gotten away from Team Heretics so quickly through the bottom lane, through the jungle matchup, that lane phase is over. It is collapsed, and there's really no place to be made for Jankos. Yeah, maybe you could have wanted to see more from him in the first few levels, anticipate some of this creative pathing from Bo, but essentially after that single instance where Bo kind of gets the better of the team, there's not really a lot left to do on the map for Jankos.
And we're seeing why we haven't got the Caitlyn out of Heretics thus far, right? I think Vitality took the gamble and it's working out for them. Now they're looking at their last tower in the mid lane. And Jankos
there. Scan of the week goes wide. That's a start. Arrow goes wide though. Mersa not hitting that ult is massive. Lamb's Respite on the backside. Mersa incredibly low. Photon stepping in. Neon getting chipped away just a little bit. Mersa ticking. 2 blinking health bars. Mersa, as well as Jankos, in trouble now as Photon Neon, it's just a temporary Azir tower, but they are very committed to sieging it. Looking to break this one down, and Tier 2, are they going to fully commit for it? Jackspektra has to be careful about stepping forward here. Huge damage, they cancel the E! Ticking. Burning, Leandries will not finish the job. Jackspektra just barely able to walk away with his life. As in the meantime, Ocean Drake is going down. Vitality are taking everything.
And the thing was, you actually saw Heretics starting to get a bit of poke down at the start of that fight, but the Radiant Virtue being completed for Kaiser means that they're able to heal back up. Bo just wanders off and takes up the third dragon. Like, everything is coming up for Vitality, and it feels like a bit of a head scratch for Heretics, right? Like, in theory, you have all the things you could possibly want on this patch. Great pushing bot lane, you got the Caitlyn and the Varus, you've got Azir in the mid lane, K'Sante in that top side. These are all big power picks on this patch, but they just haven't been able to bring it together thus far.
And again, when you're at this kind of deficit, your windows of opportunity are tiny and in some cases non-existent. You hope that Mersa hits an ult, you have enough burst to shut someone down completely, take a single pick, trade even where you can, and trading even is a win for Team Heretics at this point in the game. But sadly, Vitality not only taking small advantages, not only taking fights, but taking objectives at the same time. So far ahead, they're able to split their focus across multiple points. Photon now stepping in here. Don't think he's going to walk forward and contest this one. Difficult map state to play out for Heretics, already on soul point, and I don't want to condemn them out of this game yet, but it is a best of 3, and this is a moment where if you are the coaching staff backstage, you are reevaluating your strategies. Now maybe they say, Caitlyn was fine, we had to respect the level 2 and run it back, but when you're on an elimination game, I think that is a tough task to put on the shoulders of your AD carry.
I mean, that's the thing though, like, especially from coming over from the LPL, like, you'll see games that happen like this where it's just like, look, things went completely astray in the early stages and teams will be able to come back for game 2. And I think that's kind of the big thing that people are looking at these best of 3s is, what do you do to come back into this? Because this isn't just a one-game thing. It's like, okay, we go back, we test things out, maybe you just decide to ban the Caitlyn, as you say, altogether, or you want to take it again. And even the fact that Heretics now will be moving over towards the blue side gives them a little bit more control over that first pick, or maybe they thought the karma was the problem, right? So I think you've got a lot of opportunities to change, and I think that's why it's so exciting to see this new format.
Yeah, ready to see the adaptation. Bo moving down to the bottom side. Kaiser fearlessly stepping forward. Mersa is so squishy. Goodbye to the Varus. Jankos now managing to knock up one. Bo flashing back out to safety, healing up just in time. Evie desperately trying to finish the job here, trying to lock up Bo. Does he have ulti available? Doesn't look like he can take him out of this one. Evie running away here as all of Vitality are descending upon the K'Sante. Slowly but surely, they look to break him down. Sion unstoppable means it's just a free port for Evie. That was clever. It looked really pretty, but I don't know if it's going to be enough. Evie now trying to finish the job. The knockup now coming in. Evie trying to make a heroic effort on the bottom side, but he's eventually brought low. Jackspektra now knocked up again. The Gale Force, not enough. Neon going to take that one away. This is a slaughter.
Oh, Virtual Eyes, Vitality are absolutely destroying Heretics. And look, I mean, Ruby sure has got some waves in the top side, but this is a disaster. I mean, Heretics just have not had a good look in, and again, it kind of feels like they had the opportunities with pushing lanes, trying to see if they could get something going, but the second you fall behind, I mean, this is all you've got left. There's nothing else to really look forward to.
And the odds were kind of stacked against Heretics when you just came into this one based on regular season performance, but it's only going from bad to worse as Vitality are continuing to prove why they are a top team in the LEC, so adept at pushing this gold lead forward, at pushing their limits here, and Mersa's a squishy boy. Sadly, there's just really nothing to be had for Team Heretics, even with all their resources.
I mean, it's also just the fact that Heretics kind of took this fight not knowing the numbers that Vitality had available, right? You could see the TP coming in from Evie to try and help it out, but it was 4 members of Vitality already there to kick things off. You got the TP from Photon, and I mean, this is where we talked about these skirmishes in River that Heretics like to go for, but oftentimes their vision just lacks that a little bit, so they don't know all the crucial information they need to try and make these plays work. But when you're this far behind, you just try anything at this stage.
And this is in any game where you're not miles and miles behind, Ezreal and Syndra don't get to be there, because they're already making a play on the bottom side. They should be catching waves, but because Vitality are so incredibly far ahead, they're able to be in 2 places at the same time, win the 3v4, also pick off Jackspektra in the mid lane. Now here, 2 items coming in for the Kindred. Second item, IE. I like to see it. We'll see how powerful it is, how much damage it does. The Ezreal certainly hit like a truck. Team Heretics just gonna have to hide under those towers and farm up. The wall there, definitely a big homie for their side as Mersa once again gonna get taken down. Ruby now scooping back to the rest of the team. Jankos finding the knockups. Ruby getting cut down. They just do not have the damage, but they will finally shut down the Kindred. A perfect split scatter the week from Perkz. Manages to find 2. Jankos now running for the hills. Photon can tank any tower he needs to, but there's no towers left standing for Jankos as the entire team looks to chase him down. Knock up over the wall. Scatter the week again. Fight after fight after fight. Vitality are slaughtering Team Heretics.
I mean, you can see the pings going over towards Baron as well, but I mean, that's Ocean Soul now available in just 2 seconds, so Vitality just going to keep this one going. Evie gets on towards Neon.
He's going all out, but he's all out of life as he will get taken down.
Rolled out of that one. Evie going back to base. Now, Dragon again, just going to walk back towards it. I mean, Vitality perfectly happy to keep this one up. The only person who went is Bo, but I mean, Jankos still dead for another 8 seconds. There's not really going to be any sort of contest coming in, and already you can see Mersa just trying to move over on towards this top side to see if they can get some vision for Baron, because you know that's going to be the next big call for Vitality. But I just don't know how Heretics try and stop them at this stage.
And it is the sad situation where you don't want to take it away from a team to try and find a comeback, but realistically you also need to look ahead to the next game and identify what the adaptation is going to be, because in a game where you're not horribly behind, maybe there was a play to be had here, but at this stage it's not even about execution. Even if the execution was perfect from Heretics, they don't have the money, they do not have the items to find more than a single kill in this fight.
I do like in this replay though how Photon did show the brick wall, who the real brick wall here was, by just going up against it.
Assert your dominance over the corner.
Yeah, I mean Heretics haven't put up much of a fight, so maybe the terrain will help to us. For Vitality, I think this is just a good start. I mean, as we said, it's still a lot to play for here for Heretics. It's only one game out of the best of 3, but I think at this stage you just kind of put this game behind you. Like, you don't even focus on it. You're like, this conversation should now be about what are the adjustments coming into the next game? How can we try and improve this? And how can we make sure that this isn't going to be a repeat for game number 2? And Heretics, I think the best bet is, hey look, we're going to try and take away something like the Karma. We're going to make sure that we're setting up more comfortable in the spot side, because I think it's fairly clear to see that Jackspektra and Mersa aren't entirely comfortable on this kind of setup in that bot side. And then see if you can get a little bit more control coming through from the jungle. Not that I think Jankos has had a particularly bad game on the Wukong, but I think it's just significantly easier for him to play that.
Knock up, snare. They're gonna kill him. Jankos now running for the hills. Second ulti stack gonna buy a bit more space. Evie on the backside with Ruby. Maybe there's something to be done here. Photon though, a very beefy front line as Perkz just runs in, pushes his R button, and there is no more Jackspektra left on the Rift. Photon flashing in. Unstoppable now coming in for Evie, trying to leap his way out to safety. He does make it out thus far. Vitality kind of just playing with their food here. Very, very far ahead. Evie gonna step in, try to get more damage down with the intolerable strikes, but will not find it. And now Vitality should be able to push in and break over the base if they want to, or get the Baron. It's really their game. They can pick wherever they want to go, and they can probably do it.
Look, sometimes you just like to pad the stats, right? Keep the game going a little bit. But honestly, I think the biggest problem for Vitality is just how short range they are. So getting this Baron is going to help out, prevent some of the wave clear that Jackspektra, Mersa, Ruby offer. So going to be able to reset, look to continue pushing this game forward. And honestly, this is just a nice pick from Photon, right? Hides in the bush, manages to catch out Mersa. And from that stage, Jankos already incredibly low just from the poke that's coming over. And they're able to chase him off as Neon, in a 1v2 for a very short time, then just has the rest of the team follow.
And unlucky for Jackspektra, trying to find the angle to throw down the damage and just be a bit of a help to the team, but just stuns himself in the duration of that ultimate channel and makes it easy for Perkz to line up the shot. Evie trying to pull off some heroic plays here, but again, members of Vitality simply too far ahead. They have an Ocean Soul backing them up, so his damage just does not stick. And it's tough. You know, I think for Team Heretics, when you look at it overall, they were not the expected favorites in this series or in this group. Remember, Vitality picked them. They chose this is the opponent that we want. You can see why. They're pulling ahead a lot in terms of individual advantages. But I think that when you look at the rest of the series, Heretics are going to have to dig deep, because when we talked to Jankos, he said it's not about how we're going to hit the ground running. It's about having to be faster at developing than other people. And they're not getting a lot of time to develop, because they're spending a lot of time with a gray screen right now, because Vitality are relentless.
And that's the thing, when you look at this Heretics roster and you look at like a coaching staff with Peter Dunn, it is going to be a case of like a slow burn for Heretics, where they do want to try and like build up that roster over time. But Vitality already hit the ground running, and they're hitting Heretics pretty hard off of that. Yeah. And now they got to try and hold on to their base.
They are trying to burn them fast. They are fast burning through Heretics. So we are 26 minutes into the game from the level 2 gank from Bo in the bottom side, setting Kaiser and Neon ahead. This has been a one-sided affair. 2 kills to 16. Ocean Soul, Vitality, ready to fountain dive before they end this game. Kaiser will get taken down. Mersa finally grabbing something back as massive damage comes in. But Vitality going to grab game 1 in this best of 3.
And that was a statement. I mean, Vitality made that one look very, very easy. Moving in towards this bottom side, get the easy level 2 gank. And I think this was the biggest worry for a lot of Heretics fans, is that a lot of what Vitality seemed very, very good at, going for strong mid jungle, into finding these skirmishes, being very decisive in how they quickly snap decision on towards any sort of opportunity they see, has kind of been a lot of the weaknesses we've seen from Heretics, where they are slightly slow to react, where they take time to build up, and Vitality just never really gave them that time.
And it's so hard because even when you do pull ahead with a composition with the Caitlyn in it, you have to keep the ball rolling against a team like Heretics, against a man as confident as Perkz is right now in front of that camera, because they do have enough, veteran voice, especially in Perkz. You know how good he is at calling those late games. They've got players with enough individual skill to follow up, and you've got Jankos on the opposite side who can be that leader, but that is a lot of pressure for one man to bear in any game like that. So it's hard for Heretics to find the edges here. And even when they find them, they have to keep that going. It is a tall task, but frankly, I'm just hoping that they can show us more in game 2, because that is not what you want your first best of 3 to look like. You're not out if you lose this one, but it starts to feel like it if you lose another game like that.
Yeah, I think especially what it does to the mental, as you're kind of hinting on, is the big issue. I do think, though, this is where we get to see how the best of 3 format makes that difference, right? Because I think the biggest thing that I've seen from like the LP and the LCK is how do you bounce back from these losses? And I've seen it plenty of times where it's a case of team goes backstage, you give up on those last 10 minutes, you're like, right, what is the game plan? And you just focus on building out game 2's plan. And I feel like that's exactly what we're going to see from Heretics.
Definitely need to see those adjustments. How they want to tackle this problem will remain to be seen. We'll see a lot of it, I think, in picks and bans and probably in the early pathing of Jankos. Are they just going to cover, try to find out where Bo is going to go? But again, it's a tall task. That said, I'm hoping for at least a more competitive game 2, as Vitality, it was a long game, but essentially just dismantling Heretics from level 2. Let's send it over to Laure and the rest of the desk to see what they have to say about that one.
Thank you, Drakos, back on this side of the studio. GB, not to call you out, but I'm kind of scared for your Heretics is going to score 1 game prediction, given how harsh this one was. Okay.
For the record, I was banking of the Vitality that played against Excel to show up.
Well,
see, personally, I wouldn't take that, but...
Right. I think it's fair. I think it's fair for sure. Don't get me wrong. But it is a best of 3. Okay,
Yeah.
we're no longer living in the best of 1 world. So my point might still come through.
We'll see about that and how they can bounce back in the next game. But let's take a look at the draft here, because especially when I want to focus on the bot lane here with the interesting picks we have on the side of Team Heretics. And I saw that a lot of people didn't really like the draft Vitality play here, but I think it's something that suits them a lot.
I think it's really interesting, the fact that you go for Karma first pick come through. Usually here on the Team Heretics red side, you want Ashe banned, you want the Caitlyn banned as well. And when the Caitlyn doesn't get banned, Team Vitality is essentially saying, well, we're going to pick the Karma then. When we also pick Kindred, this is going to be a flex into support mid lane. But if it does go support, then Karma is one of the supports that actually plays well into Caitlyn, because you... Caitlyn. Caitlyn, I'm speaking to him in the green room. Caitlyn, because you get to try and contest some of the wave push that she usually goes for.
Yeah, and the Ezreal too has been a pick that I remember like Neon playing like back in the day as well. But I think like overall, sort of like looking at this from Vitality, like my question was like, where's the Karma going to go? Because a lot of the value in that first pick is that you can flex it around. And after the first rotation, all they're really looking for is some kind of like big engage. I thought like an Ornn maybe could have worked here, but the Sion I loved as well. When you're just handshaking over that the Cassante is going to go to Ebby on the top side of the map. I think that Photon was super happy just to play like tank on that matchup and sort of chill into the later stages of the game, especially with how Bo set up for that bot side.
Yeah, and it was interesting, especially because we knew that top lane was going to be an island. And during Ready Check, we talked about both jungles and what could be expected, especially when it comes to setting up the bot lane. And here, I think Bo completely filled his role. GB.
Yeah, completely. I actually have a telestrate I'd like to do about
Go
this.
ahead.
Oh,
Oh,
if I'm allowed
Talk
to.
us through it.
Go,
Yeah.
For sure.
It's all yours.
Yeah.
I'm told the drawing is broken on this, so we're going to have to do the best thing we can currently. But yeah, I really want to talk about how the bot lane was influenced in the early game, specifically by Bo, but also how Vitality is able to adapt their game plan on the fly. So before we get into it, when you have this kind of bot lane where you play the Varus together with the Caitlyn, you want to pretty much just win the early trades. You just want to go at their face. So what's going to happen here as we roll out the clip is that they're going to try and give bush control here. This is really standard play from the side of a bot lane. What Kaiser does here is he's preemptively gone for the sweeper. So that's one ward down. And as this clip come out, is we see another ward actually be placed here. This ward gets pinged. And this right now means from the side of Vitality, they know that both bot laners has used their wards. What does it mean? Well, it means that there's no longer any wards that's going to be put in the river. So as we continue the clip here, you're going to see that Bo, he's actually going to adapt his jungle pathing. Now he's going to be great. I'm just going to two-camp this one. And now he's just coming into the bot lane where he can make the jungle diffy happen here from the get-go. The worst thing that can happen to a double-range bot lane like the Caitlyn and Varus is the fact that there's early jungle interference. Because this messes up the entire bot lane that you want to play. Now you're no longer allowed to be on the opponent's side of the map. Now you're no longer allowed to farm your sickle. You're no longer allowed to push forward. And now, as you can see them, they've just put in this area where they're the one who's pushed behind. Now, something really important is going to happen here as we pause it and look at the minimap right now. You can see that Jankos has actually just been spotted on the top side of the map. What this tells the Vitality bot lane is we can flip it. We can just kill them straight up here. So as we roll out the clip once again, remember, no summoner spells on Jackspektra. They've already been used from Bo's early interference. This sets up a bot lane that shouldn't win the bot lane, but allows them to win it anyway. So despite the fact that Team Heretics is setting their bot lane up for success in the early game, Bo immediately, with the early intel that he got from his own bot lane, allows to play around it and set Neon and Kaiser up for success.
That was fantastic. And I also think that like Bo's timing of the bot lane gank, because we saw him do that in his first game on the Graves, where it was like red buff instantly into bot lane. This time it was different because he goes for the second camp on Krugs. It's when the wave is coming in, so they're fighting. They're trying to get Prio to hit level 2, and that's the second that Bo comes in on the gank. You know that range versus range, like both sides are going to be fighting really aggro over that, so the timing could not have been more perfect.
Yeah, and if you take that back to the fact that when you draft a bot lane like the Caitlyn Varus once again, you have to win the early game. You have to go hard. You have to get plates for there. If you mess up their early game, they're just put behind. Now you're playing into Karma and Ezreal. This is going to poke you out. And I mean, Neon now probably winning on this Ezreal. I mean, you can see it behind me. This game was an absolute stomp. The things that needed to go well from Team Heretics was completely shut down, not by themselves, but by the ingenuity of Vitality.
Yeah, and especially, I mean, Neon winning on this kind of matchup he was not supposed to win on. And when you look at Heretics now in terms of comfort and bouncing back from this brutal game, what should we be looking at for them to make things better?
I mean, for me, I don't know what exactly they can solve in terms of draft. Like, I would love to see them take
staying on the same
can,
side.
like fight. They are staying on red side. Okay, yeah. So you're expecting then Karma first pick to come on through, unless they switch up a ban to go into that, because it seems like if they're not winning through bot lane, like the classic way. I think for Heretics to win was to play like really aggressive bot lane champions.
Right.
That seems to be a struggle. And if you are going to play the ranged, like, where's the Halo Blades at?
Yeah, exactly. Especially when you go from the Umbro Blade. But I also think just in terms, this was a setup thing. The fact that both your wards were used in the early game for this down on the bottom brush is already a mistake. The fact that you're not utilizing either vision through Tribush or coming around Tribush itself to out-trade them when the enemy bot lane comes through is going to make a mistake. I think this is a game where you say, all right, we're just simply out-macroed in the early game here. We don't necessarily have to make huge takeaways for this. We can tweak draft a bit. We can try and go more for comfort. But I don't necessarily think that everything went down to draft here. I think Vitality just straight up outplayed them. And that's the thing that you have to take into account moving into the next game.
No, but we saw that Heretics, especially even though we said that they don't have a clear identity, are so feel really good when they're on comfort picks. Especially, I would like to look at the draft again here, because Jackspektra, for instance, I think of Draven and picks like this. What kind of comfort champions can we give Heretics to put them back on tracks?
In terms of the comfort, like, I'm not so sure, because I think that, like, Caitlyn can work for them on bot side, but what I'd like to see them do is maybe try to, like, build up, get Prio, obviously, getting level 2 ganked, that's going to make things harder for you, but maybe if they can get Jankos onto something that's a little bit more, like, heavier early game, like, if they could bring out something, obviously, they banned away the Elise themselves, and have the Sejuani taken away as well.
And that's the interesting one, actually, for me, because from Team Vitality, they're banning away a lot of the junglers that Jankos would usually favor himself. They're going for the likes of Maokai, they're going for the likes of Sejuani. And on the third ban on red side, you then have the kind of pressure on you to say, right, either I can let the Elise open, or I can give it to you. I could also just ban Vi to get that out of the picture right now, and then, you know, call their bluff bluff now. You can leave the Elise open. If you want to first pick Karma, well, then you can take the Elise for yourself. But I don't necessarily think the Karma first pick is something that's super broken that you have to watch out for. And once again, it comes down to the fundamentals of play for me, really.
I'd like to see earlier pathing from Jankos bot side, some vision to protect against early bow ganks, because also the fact that they got torn apart in bot lane, it meant that all the early Drakes went to Vitality. Vitality got the Heralds. Like all these objectives that Heretics want to team fight you at, they just were not in positions to be able to do so. It was a very quiet early game from them because the lanes were lost before Jankos could get there. That has to change.
And more lane prior and focus on the early game especially, but we'll see if Vitality can close out the series in a clean 2-0. We will be back right after the break.